Time now for sports on 104.7 The Cave. Here's Ned Reynolds.
Mike, the intern, Ned Reynolds, in the studio on a Wednesday morning. So we got to start off the day with some bad news.
Yeah, sad note. It really is. I know he was 86 years old, and that's supposedly a good life, and it was in his case, but still, this is Brooks Robinson. Those, the baseball icons, and really, we're singularizing this because that's what we're talking about here, but the legends in any impacting entity in life aren't supposed to get old. They aren't supposed to pass away, but they do. They're mortals, and it is very sad. Gosh, what a superstar Brooksy was. Mike, most of our audience, I'm quite sure, is too young to remember when he came up. He joined the Baltimore Orioles in 1955. That's a long time ago, 1955, and he was a kid, 18 years old, out of Little Rock, Arkansas. Could play the game, especially on defense. He joined the Orioles just shortly after they moved from St. Louis, when they were the St. Louis Browns. That's when he joined the club. That's how long ago it was. Played for 23 years. And I think the most amazing thing of all in his achievements wasn't a big power hitter, nothing like that. Defense. He could play defense. He won 16 Gold Gloves at third base, and all consecutively. 16 straight Gold Gloves. That is utterly unbelievable. Maybe the best third sacker ever. The only player with more Gold Gloves in all of baseball is Greg Maddux, the pitcher, but that's kind of a different story. How well this old man remembers the 1970 World Series, Baltimore and Cincinnati. We had it on KY3. I was at KY3 at the time. And Brooks Robinson turned, and they already been in the league for 15 years. He turned playing third base into a defensive clinic. He stopped everything in sight. Matter of fact, this is the Big Red Machine. That big, powerful team. Johnny Bench and all the great stars on that team. Johnny Bench said, well, they give a new car to the most valuable player in the World Series. If we wanted a new car, we would have bought him one. Get him out of there. He's killing us. Everything that was hit to third base, he got. Diving, leaping. It was an incredible show. And, of course, the O's won the thing, but this guy was something special. And a good guy. A gentleman. Everybody respected Brooks Robinson. He was taken into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1983, I believe it was. 83 for the kid. And he was just great. 2 World Series championships, 1 MVP, 18 All-Star games. But more than anything else, just the defensive wizard that he was, and an iconic figure in all of baseball. Just tough to see him go. He was 86 years old, passed away yesterday, and that's just as hard to swallow when you followed a guy like that, and he has made, or did make, the Baltimore Orioles what they were back in the 70s.
Yeah, and set the bar for what a third baseman needs to be, because now you've got to have a third baseman that has that type of mentality if you want to be a good baseball team.
Are there any? Well, I would almost put a nod to Mike Schmidt of the Philadelphia Phillies, who won 10 Gold Gloves in his time. The difference is Schmidt's a great defensive player, but he was also a power hitter. 548 career home runs, one of the best in baseball. And the other nod I would give to Nolan Arenado of the St. Louis Cardinals. He has 10 Gold Gloves, and he's still playing. He isn't playing right now because he has a bad back, but in regards to his career, he still has a number of years remaining. He could achieve that mark. He's also a brilliant defensive third baseman as well as being a good hitter. But still, Brooks Robinson's the one who set the bar.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. The other thing we learned is that you got a car for being the MVP of the series. Now you get what? I can't even imagine how many million.
$1 trillion.
Yeah, it's like there's got to be some kind of bonus clause in everyone's. If you get that MVP, you get this. It ain't no car anymore, I'll tell you that much. No. We mentioned some of the other greats that are at least in here in current playing, but other than him back in the day. Anyone else come to mind?
Well, yeah, the Cardinals had Terry Pendleton.
Yeah, I was going to say
and
him.
Pendleton was a very good defensive player as well. Kenny Boyer of the Cardinals was very good. Sure, Brett. Come on, what more?
Forget about it.
But Brett wasn't quite the defensive player. Great player, Hall of Famer, but not quite the defensive player that Robinson was. But nobody else was either.
No, Brett was a great hitter though. Brett was almost like a hockey player that somehow got his way into baseball. That's the way I always felt about him.
That was Brooks Robinson.
Yeah.
Same thing, diving and leaping, and he really just set the barrier for what it should be to be a good third.
Yeah, it's almost like an outfielder in the infield. So the Cardinals and Royals are in their final week of play in the regular season. Each got a chance to play last night. Royals still looking good.
Royals had their winning streak snapped last night in
sucks.
Detroit. Final score was 6-3 in favor of the Detroit Tigers. Cardinals won, beat the Milwaukee Brewers, and this is kind of an odd thing that does happen every so often. Cardinals win the game 4-1, but the Brewers, even though they lost, clinched the division title. Why is that? That's because the Chicago Cubs, who were chasing them, were mathematically eliminated from the championship last night. Cardinals played fairly well. Miles Michaelis had a shaky start, but continued to pitch pretty well. They went 7 innings in this game, gave up 5 hits, and only the 1 run. Cardinals got the big hits. They got a home run from Palacios, and this he's coming out of nowhere and playing just great baseball down the stretch. But anyway, a split for the two teams.
Great season for the Springfield Cardinals, and thanks for giving us something to root for big time. Also, I just think it's funny. Well, not funny for Cubs fans, but it sucks to have to wait till the final week to find out if you're going to keep going or not. At least we knew we weren't going to make it anytime soon.
You could relax and the Cubs are still in it. They could and probably will get into the playoffs, but you can't give up ones. We'll talk about this in just a minute. You can't give up games the way they did last night.
Yeah. All right. So after Zach Wilson's performance in the football game this past weekend, Jets have been scrambling. It looks like their answer, I don't really think is a good answer, but they did add to their roster.
That's Trevor Siemian, and they got Cincinnati Bengals released him a couple of weeks ago, and he's floating around there as a free agent. Yeah, the New York Jets have signed him. Now, Siemian's played in the NFL for 6, 7, 8 years now. He's a journeyman quarterback. He's been with every team. Kid out of Northwestern in the Big Ten Conference. Not a great player, but might be the answer until, and this is the latest rumor. I love this one. Until the Jets make a trade for a quarterback. And who are they angling for? Well, the rumor is Kirk Cousins from the Minnesota Vikings. Why would the Vikings let him go? Well, the Vikes are off to a very slow start, and Cousins is a free agent at the end of the year. So maybe Minnesota says, hey, we can get something, and the New York Jets say we can get something. We can get at least a stopgap anyway. That's the rumor. But in the meantime, I suspect that Siemian, if he isn't the starter against the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday night, he'll be in there pretty shortly.
Crazy start to the year when you're seeing some of these quarterbacks like Stroud from Houston. He's had some really good numbers so far. I mean, he's a rookie, and it is the Texans. They haven't really played a lot of really tough hombres yet, fingers crossed. But, man, I tell you what, he's looking good. He's looking a lot better than others.
You have to remember what we've always said. These are all outstanding athletes, every one of them. The bad teams.
You say that, but then you watch Zach Wilson sack himself. Literally sack himself.
Now, wait a minute. He's under a lot of pressure, number one. He had great year at Brigham Young, and great seasons at Brigham Young, and he had a pretty good year with the Jets last year. They weren't a good team. These are tremendous athletes, but it's a team game.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to have the team around you, and you have to have direction.
I'm just pointing out all the pundits that were so high up on Wilson when he got drafted. The floor for this guy is Patrick Mahomes and Aaron. That's the floor. That's the floor. Yeah, well, guess what? He sacked himself, and that's the ceiling, brother.
Well, nobody is going to be better than Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes is a class above.
He just cracks me up. It just makes me laugh every single time. All right, so back to baseball. Obviously, Cardinals and Royals are out. You said the Milwaukee Brewers clinched. Cubs still could get in the playoffs as a wild card.
But they clinched because the Cubs, who had the it was very fleeting, of course, but had the chance, did lose last night after leading the Atlanta Braves, after leading them 6-0. All right, the margin got to 6-5, and the Cubs left fielder dropped a fly ball, allowed 2 runs to score. The Braves win 7-6. The Cubs falter. And now they're a wild card possibility. Matter of fact, they're a very strong contender for a wild card berth. But there are other teams chasing them. Philadelphia Phillies last night clinched a wild card berth. They are in, beat the Pittsburgh Pirates The Cincinnati Reds, don't sell them out. They knocked off the Cleveland Guardians 11-7. Cincinnati very much in the hunt. These teams that we're talking about, Mike, are all within a game or a game and a half of each other with 5 games to play. The Arizona Diamondbacks, 15-4 over the Chicago White Sox. Arizona's right in there. And the big one in the American League, Seattle Mariners, Houston Astros. The Astros are completely deflated. Seattle beat them 6-2. These are 2 deflating teams, and one over-deflated the other. The Astros, gosh, they lost 3 series. Lost the whole series to the Royals. They lost before then. They're on a big-time losing streak, and Seattle beat them last night. So that episode is reaching a climactic conclusion. The same with the Toronto Blue Jays and the Yankees shut out the Blue Jays last night. Yankees aren't in it, but Toronto is. This is all brought about by the addition of 2 extra wild card teams into the playoffs. It occurred a couple of years ago. It's the newest brainstorm of the Major League Baseball pundits and aficionados, but they do what they think is right, and I don't agree with it, but that's the way it is. It is what it is, and will continue to be.
All right. Well, you have a great day, Ned, and I will see you tomorrow.